Okay, it's 11:02 and there's still a few people joining, but I think let's kick this off. And I want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody all over the world. We're excited that you joined today. Each one of these release webinars seems to break record attendance, and it did again. So we're thrilled, and I hope the content is super valuable to you all. We are Platformation, and we make workflow for companies around the world. And this is going to be a quick highlights of the best from ServiceNow's most recent release, the San Diego release. We have a ton of panelists, our subject matter experts on the line for you today, and each one will go through a really quick highlight of their favorite new features and capabilities. So let's get started. Just a few housekeeping rules before we hand it over to the presenters. Mute your lines, especially for all of our panelists, because we have so many of them on the line, if you're not talking. Submit questions, use the Q&A feature. Sometimes if you use the chat feature, that's okay too. Of course, we'll email you a recording after this session. And other than that, sit back and enjoy. I hope it's great content for you all today. Today's tour guides, I'm not going to go through all of their names because there are too many and we have 2 pages of them. But let me just say they're really smart and they have some great updates for you all. So ITSM, WSD, HRSD, CSM, Platform, App Engine, and DevOps in that order, followed by FSM, CMDB, ITOM, Strategic Portfolio Management, Reporting and Performance Analytics, and finishing it off with IRM and GRC. So the first update is going to be from Olaf, and that's for ITSM. Olaf, I'll hand it over to you.
Very much, Maria. The update for ITSM is all about giving overview and insight. And the first topic I'd like to address is the digital portfolio management. And that is, it actually gives you an overview of your full plan, build, and run life cycle of the service you're responsible for. And what neat is that it takes information from other modules like the CSDM portfolio management to add it to your ITSM information. And it really gives you a good combination of roadmaps and demands on the one hand, projects and changes that are coming up, and also incidents and improvements and problems that are in the run system. So it gives you a great overview for what you're responsible of today and what you have in the pipeline for your users in the future. The next topic would be indeed the vendor management workspace. And this is also giving you a great overview of your performance of your vendors. So it assesses their performance, the contracts you have with them, SLAs that you have with them, and also the performance of those SLAs, the satisfaction measurements, assets, and all the improvement initiatives you have with that vendor. And the biggest, the most important parts are also available in the mobile apps, especially for the vendor management. I see Maria is a bit more quick than I am, so I'm going to go to the last topic, and that's several ones that enhancements over all the ITSM processes. For instance, a lot of out-of-the-box fields in incident management are improved via a plugin. MS Teams as a preferred communication channel for escalations is added. The walk-up has been really improved by remote walk-ups and using the skills to route them. And there's also a better forecasting of your workforce to see how they adhere to the schedule they have. So that's it for ITSM. And I'd like to hand it over to Victor for workplace service delivery.
Thanks, Olaf. So now for workplace service delivery, 3 topics that we're going to discuss. Find your colleagues, dynamic approvals, and the mobile floor maps. First of all, find your colleagues. So with this new feature, it's even easier to book spaces near your colleagues. We can just search for a user, select one of the reservation dates, and then the system will automatically give us the spaces, for example, desks that are near our colleagues, so that we can book it for ourselves to sit next to our team, but also to book it for our team members so that we can all sit together and work together. These can all be shared, of course, directly to everybody in the company to see, okay, we're sitting here and we are going to make our workflow using these desks. Next up is the dynamic approvals. So we used to be able to do approvals based on our spaces and having to configure it every time. With the dynamic approvals, we can make it way easier. We just set up our approvals one time. So in this example, what you see here, we have approvals for our finance area. We say everything that is in the area that we find finance should always be approved by our finance area managers. This makes it way easier when we update or create new spaces within that area that will automatically use that flow, making it easier for the customers to configure them and keeping the load off. And then the last part for WSD is the mobile floor maps, maybe one of the coolest new features. With WSD for mobile, now all the native capabilities of WSD really are embedded into the mobile application. So also the floor maps, the 3D floor maps, so that we can create, update, cancel our bookings, share them with our colleagues, but also to use wayfinding to find our way through the company to know, okay, we need to go to the second floor and get that guidance directly in our 3D maps through our mobile application. So that's it for WSD, and over to Maarten.
Thanks, Victor. Hi, I'm Maarten, and I will be talking about 3 topics today, namely ad hoc tasks, the anonymous report center, and HR profile. Firstly, we have a new feature for within HRSD, ad hoc tasks for lifecycle events. So within HRSD, lifecycle events can be configured to automate processes that span over a large amount of time with different actors and with different departments. Maria, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. A typical example here is onboarding that starts when a new hire signs its contract and continues until the first weeks of the start of the work, of course. With ad hoc tasks, HR fulfillers, HR agents can manually add tasks to this automated process and gives them the flexibility that they need to set the tone for the process. Next, we have the anonymous report center, and that is a new feature that lowers the bar for employees to provide valuable feedback to HR. And employees can submit anonymous reports, feedback, and sensitive cases to HR without, for example, without the fear of having a negative impact on its work. This can range from harassment, inappropriate behavior, to just general feedback for HR. HR can then follow up on these cases without having information on who has reported the issue. The last feature I'd like to share is HR profile, and more specifically, an added security. Namely, a new encrypted field was added on the HR profile, the national tax ID, and it allows for enhanced security. This fits into the broader narrative of ServiceNow to deal with sensitive data. Within HRSD, the HR profile is separated from the user table, and this is actually a next step with an encrypted field. That's it for HRSD. I'd like to give it over now to Sebastian for CSM.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Sebastian. I'm here today to show you the new features for customer service management in San Diego. So I brought with me 3 great new features, starting with the workspace improvements. So now with the new Next Experience UI combined with the configurable CSM workspace, we've got a bunch of cool improvements. So do you remember the last time that you wanted to add a new column to your default list layout in the workspace and you were annoyed because you actually had to create a new list just to achieve that small little thing? Not anymore. You can now personalize your list in the workspace just like you can do in the backend UI. And if you want to switch between the backend UI and the workspace, you have now the unified navigation that effortlessly allows you to switch without actually requiring multiple tabs and stuff like that. On top of that, you get a slick looking new dark theme that you can enable if you want to for your user. It comes with the CSM standard for the configurable workspace. Next up, we have a whole new application. It's the order management for customer service management. So if you want to allow your customers to order products that you have published in your ServiceNow environment from their, let's say, CRM system or another order management environment that they have on their side, you can allow that with this new application, which utilizes an industry standard API called the TMF 622, which is made specifically for that purpose, and which ServiceNow based their application on as well, to allow orders from another environment in your ServiceNow. And you can then manage the full life cycle, of course, of those orders in your ServiceNow environment. It's a separate subscription, so a full new application that you can get from the store app. It's called Order Management for Customer Service Management. Next up, last but not least, we have the language detection feature. So here we are utilizing machine learning to analyze free text fields like case short description or the case description to predict the language that your customer is using, to then assign the appropriate language skill to the case, and with that skill improve the automatic assignment to find the appropriate agent that has the same language skill to work on this case. So this can be extremely useful if you're working in a global support environment, or if you're working in a country like Switzerland where you have to support a bunch of languages, right? So it's a CSM Pro feature because it utilizes the machine learning, but it's definitely worth checking out. And with that, thanks for your attention, and I hand over to the next polling question.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. Okay, so this brings us to poll question number 2. Let's see if we can display it on the screen here while I read it out loud. And we're just curious, how often does your organization upgrade to a new release? The answers, as you can see, are multiple choice: once a year, twice a year, once every 2 years, or none of the above. I know that sometimes customizations and legacy systems can make these upgrades hard, complex, and really time consuming. And we're just curious what all of you experience. So let's see if we can display the answer, what people said. Okay, most people said twice a year. Impressive, that's good news. Some said once a year, cool. All right, let's move on to the next presenter, which is Willem for platform.
Yeah, so it seems fitting when we upgrade that we cover the next experience, that new user interface. I will also tell you something about the flow designer, and finally the robotic process automation, the RPA hub. So first of all, the next experience. There's a difference if you're a new customer, that next experience user interface is already enabled. If you upgrade, you have to set a system property. And there's also user preference you can use to use, for example, the user interface 16, the interface look and feel that we now know for many years. We can still pin the menu if you want, but automatically it will roll up and gives you a lot more screen real estate. Easy to find, you can still use the filter navigator, so everything that you're used to, more modernized and more accessible. So next up is the flow designer. We have 2 personas that they thought of. First of all, the business, the flow diagram. So it allows you, the flow designer flow that you have built, to look at that from a diagram view. This is a plugin that you can enable, and it allows you more easily to communicate with your business to see what's going on with that automation and making the work flow for your business. The second one, the second persona, is they also thought about the technician. So if you can go to the next slide, the developers might know this. This is a try and catch. So if you are a programmer, that's common practice. What happens? You try to execute something, and if it doesn't handle it as you expect, it will go into the catch. So you can do some handling, in addition to the error handling that we already know from the Rome release. And then finally, the final topic is that RPA hub. So we can do robotic process automation in ServiceNow. This is not a 1.0 version because ServiceNow has bought this. So already 3,500 robotic process automations are available for you to dive into and to make the workflow even further. Okay, then next up is Tim.
Yes, so what is new in the San Diego release for App Engine? Today I want to talk about app templates, the integration with Process Automation Designer, and last but not least, the new form builder in App Engine Studio. So first, app templates. So while before San Diego already we had app templates in App Engine Studio, and it was possible to create apps with templates like emergency alert template or event registration template, now it is possible to create new templates either from scratch or from an existing application. That means if you developed a really nice application in App Engine Studio, you can now make it reusable by creating a template from it and then developing another app very efficiently and very fast. Second, integration with Process Automation Designer. So Process Automation Designer is not new, but the integration between Process Automation Designer and App Engine Studio is new with San Diego. So Process Automation Designer is a very easy to use tool that enables process owners to create processes, unified processes on a really easy user interface within ServiceNow. But now it is possible to make that happen right from App Engine Studio, meaning that when you create an app with App Engine Studio, which requires the use of Process Automation Designer, it can now be all done in that one user interface in App Engine Studio. Last but not least, the new form builder. So with San Diego, ServiceNow implemented a new form builder in App Engine Studio. You can see it here in the middle of the screen, and it's a very easy to use user interface where on the left side you just search for the right field, drag and drop it to the middle, and by that can very easily create the form you need for your new application you are building in App Engine Studio. So it just got a lot easier in San Diego to create these forms for the applications you are building in App Engine Studio. Thank you. Next up, Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. My name is Christine, and I'll show you what's new in DevOps for the San Diego release. So we have 3 topics for today. First is onboarding tools and applications in DevOps. Second, DevOps change requests without mandating or requiring the use of DevOps as category. And the third one is the new look and feel for the DevOps pipeline. With the onboarding tools and applications in DevOps, once this is enabled, this can be considered a new way of working, which involves service requests in the service portal. So in the past, DevOps admins used to onboard applications and tools manually. This means getting the important information to onboard an app or tool by an interview or an email from the development teams, which might take some time. This information includes which pipeline to use for the automated changes, which board or planning tool to use, repositories, and credentials. But now with these new features, self-service onboarding via catalog item is enabled. Development team can just go to the service portal and raise a request. Once submitted and approved, it will pull in all of the data automatically from the tool to ServiceNow. This includes your repositories, pipelines, and plans. This will also mean that it will reduce the repetitive task and manual work for the DevOps admins, and instead they can just focus on enabling and setting up the automated changes for each tool or application. And aside from that, there will be a visibility for both the requester and the DevOps teams on what is the progress of each application or tool that were requested to be onboarded. And next, the DevOps change requests without mandating or requiring the use of DevOps as category. Before, the change requests that were created as part of the automated changes in the out-of-the-box DevOps application had the category field set to DevOps automatically, and it was mandatory. But now with the new feature, once the categorizing option is enabled from the DevOps properties, all of the change requests that will be created from the DevOps application can now have a category other than DevOps. So this can be software or hardware, depending on what the change is about. So this feature will help align better with a different way of working in the change management. And last but not the least, is the new look for the DevOps. So these features showcases that indeed less is more. With the modernized look and feel of the DevOps and the pipeline UI, this will give the DevOps integration users a better user experience. And yes, and that is all for DevOps. And coming next is the poll question.
Okay, and that takes us to poll question number 3. Let's see if we can put it up on the screen here. Okay, what is your biggest challenge upgrading to a new release? Pick one between internal resources, custom functionality, zero impact on running projects, or other. Let us know what your biggest challenge is when you go to upgrade. Okay, let's see the answers. Custom functionality, not terribly surprising. In the second, it's a tie between zero impact and internal resources. Okay, good to know. All right, let's move on to our next update, and that will be FSM by Anyo. Anyo, you can take over from here if you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mia. The 3 highlights for field service management in San Diego: soft booking, multi-day tasks, and scheduling enhancements. So let's start with soft booking. This actually allows our dispatchers, the people that plan the work, to set up an entire plan, an entire scheduling solution, drag and drop things around in the dispatcher workspace. And what ServiceNow has done is that they introduced an extra scheduled state. And while dispatchers are planning, the system prevents any notifications going out to the actual engineers. So they will not get spammed. They will not get overwhelmed by the number of notifications because of dispatchers searching the correct place. The notification will only be sent out once the dispatchers confirm the scheduling plan and they commit to this. So this is of great help for both dispatchers, but also engineers that receive less tasks. The second one is multi-day tasks. And this is a feature that we have got a lot of questions about. And while it is called multi-day tasks, the functionality actually is allowing any schedule entries to be planned around. So this can be a break, so it can be from a day to a day, but it can also be really a lunch break. So the system can right now take breaks, any kind of breaks into account and plan around that. So this multi-day task or multi-schedule task is working both for manual planning, but also automatic planning, automatic dispatching. And it takes in the schedules of the engineers, of the field technicians, plans around that. And by allowing multi-day tasks, allowing multi-schedule entries, it gives visibility for both dispatchers and engineers who does what, who has availability where, but also just improves the way of scheduling, and it causes less work for dispatchers to plan multi-day tasks. Last up are some general enhancements to scheduling. We have heard about the new Next UI or the Polaris UI that was presented before. The dispatcher workspace is using that heavily. It's completely onboarded into that UI. And the dark theme that we've heard before is enabled by default, preventing actually eye strain for people that need to look at the plan board for a long time. The dark mode is better for health and ergonomics of the dispatchers. For the dispatcher, they're also automatic refresh, so they don't need to click manual anymore. They can override task assignment in case the dynamic or automatic dispatching didn't work entirely as expected. So it's just improvements for dispatchers. And on the customer side, there are improvements for the appointment booking. And that ties in back to the dispatchers always, but it only right now shows end users or your customers that are planning an appointment in the portal, presents those with only the allowed options, only the available options. And the highlight of that, or what is so cool about it, is that it actually respects the capacity and the reservation rules that we have configured in the platform. So if you know what the capacity, or if there's some reserved slots, those will no longer be selected, and you will not end up with double work or disappointed customers in the end. Those are the 3 things for field service management. And with that, I would give it to Dylan for the CMDB.
Hello, everybody. So yes, I'm going to take you through 3 highlights around the CMDB for San Diego, where the first will be the new service graph connectors. The second will be the dynamic reconciliation rules. And besides that, there's some other small improvements and enhancements that I would like to share with you. So with the San Diego release, ServiceNow has released also some new service graph connectors. Service graph connector is actually a out-of-the-box application which makes it a lot easier to integrate and connect with third-party sources. For example, the import of data. With the San Diego release, we have AWS, Lightstep, Tanium, Dynatrace, AppDynamics, and Puppet. It does require item visibility, and it can be installed from the ServiceNow store as applications. This dynamic identification and reconciliation engine, this actually allows for setting dynamic reconciliation rules based on attribute values when you are leveraging the multi-source CMDB. And so previously we could set priority settings based on the source that we have. Now we can determine what value we will give to a certain attribute based on the dynamic rules that we have set up in the dynamic reconciliation rules. This gives us more flexibility in setting up the CMDB and providing priority and the filling of attributes based on the multi-source CMDB. Doesn't require a separate license, though you need to have the multi-source CMDB enabled. Next one, and then the other enhancements, the CMDB workspace, which was first early access, now becomes out of the box available from San Diego onwards. This gives you a one-stop shop for managing your CIs as an administrator. Besides that, the CMDB data manager now has a functionality that helps you with managing orphaned dependent CIs. So what it does, if you retire or delete a certain CI that has child CIs, then it creates a task which you can check as an administrator to delete also the related records in the CMDB. The optional IRE, there's an option within the IRE to update the last scan field. So even if this was not provided in the initial payload, it will still allow you to update the last scan field, which is very useful. Besides that, there's now a functionality that CMDB admins can run the script in order to create and reference product models for specific CI classes. With the script, the model IDs are filled and also the product models are created. There are no separate licenses required for these functionalities, though some plugins might need to be activated. And with that, I want to hand it over to Emanos.
Thank you, Dylan. Hello, everyone. Let's take a quick look at the enhancements coming with the San Diego release around the ever-evolving product of IDOM. We will check three main focus areas: the agent client collector, the cloud operation workspace, and the IDOM governance. Let's start with the agent client collector enhancement. Agent client collector sits in the center of the new developed functionalities. It is a single agent that has the ability to discover Windows, Linux, and other devices. So let's see what type of data it now brings into the tables. For software asset management, we have a higher collection of metrics and more data incoming. Until now, it was required for a third party or for SCCM to be activated, which are very resource intensive integrations that you need to have, but ServiceNow can now take care of it. For the SecOps, we have the security analysts that need access to real-time data. That is now enabled within ServiceNow. You don't have to change to another product in order to see exact information around your systems. That means that your mean time to recover is reduced. For ITSM, we have new playbooks in order to monitor and create remediation issues, even automatically around known problems that will exist. And last but not least, we have the IPv6 support and log analytics enabled. Moving on to the next point, it is going to be, as we saw, more data is coming, but it's harder to manage. So that's why ServiceNow has developed a new workspace for the cloud operations. It will be released with San Diego. It will include all functionality needed for a cloud engineer to set up and manage the cloud operations, visualize the discovery jobs around it, showcase the newly discovered CIs, remediate errors or create tasks around them. And pretty much gonna be the one thing that they need to know and visit every day. Last point, it will be the item governance, one workspace to rule them all. It is a set of applications that uses workflows to assess your cloud readiness and make sure that you have standardized policies across all of your CIs. It will allow you to migrate from on-prem to the cloud in a structured and insightful way, and will allow you to maintain the over-compliancy of the existing and newly deployed resources up to your standards. Let's now hear from our strategic portfolio management expert, Panagiotis.
Hi, Manos. Thank you. Cool stuff. Let's start. First of all, about the name strategic portfolio management. It is actually the new official name of ITBM. So from San Diego onwards, you will hear that quite often. Having that said, I would like to focus on three main areas. First of all, the goal framework, which is actually a new framework as a separate plugin in the San Diego release. And it will allow you to organize your strategies and goals by associating these with projects, epics, and other planning items. But not only that, it will allow you further to set specific targets and also view and track these targets through time. Next up, the alignment planner workspace, which is actually not new, but it has come with some improvements within the San Diego release. The main improvement, what I see, is that it will allow us now to combine projects, demands, epics into a single roadmap. So it will allow us to create hybrid roadmaps for all these things. Not only that, it will even allow us to create goal relationships, but also track our progress via milestones. Last but not least, again, a new workspace, the new project workspace UI, which I think will make a lot of project managers really happy, especially for the ones that were using the old planning console. It is new, improved, it is really faster, and it has some quite cool functionalities. We can drag and drop things. We can also have a baseline comparison towards our real-time, let's say, schedule. But not only that, it will also allow us now to visualize our risk via our critical path on our schedule. So that was it from my end so far, and let's move on to the poll question number 4.
Thanks, Panos. Let's see if we can get the poll question 4 put up on the screen here. ServiceNow release webinars are most valuable to me in what format? So this is kind of a question to you on how this format works for you all. Like this in speed dating format, a full, more in-depth session about one product, for example, ITSM, or somewhere in between the two. Let us know what you think. And we're always willing to adjust these based on what our audience wants. Okay, this one is a nice surprise, and this is great for us to take into account as we go forward with the next release webinar. So great to know. Thanks for answering. And we'll move on with the next presenter here, which is Paul Gerritz for data and analytics.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. So for data and analytics, we're going to talk a little bit about the dashboards, some improvements on performance analytics, and there's some NLU, natural language understanding improvements coming up as well. So starting with the dashboards, of course, we are ServiceNow is pushing more towards the next experience UI. So we have a nice new UI, and they're pushing this with the workspaces, but also with the dashboards. And to do this, they are actually discontinuing the use of the home pages. So starting from the new San Diego instances, you cannot create home pages anymore. On upgraded instances, you can still use them, but there are options to bulk migrate them to dashboards. Next to that, the dashboards also have a new and updated look and feel, actually, coming with the new UI. So for performance analytics, there are some upgrades to the target settings. So there were some changes already made to setting targets for creating them. This has further been simplified. And next to that, the forecasting methods have been improved. So the linear ones have been removed, or sorry, the naive methods have been improved. They're actually upgraded to the linear regression models. And there are a lot of underwater upgrades to make things more smooth and to display the scores in a faster way. So next up is the natural language understanding part. So this is for your virtual agent administrators. So there are now 3 ways to create models in the system. So you can use existing models, or you can import them using the CSV functionality, or you can create them all from scratch. And there are ways to export them in a more easy way and to add them to your update sets. And lastly, there's a whole way to manage your models with the phases and guide you through creation and basically testing them and publishing them to your virtual agent. So that's it for NLU. Next up is Maximilian.
Yeah, thanks. I also have handpicked 3 features of GRC and IAM I want to talk about today. We will start with my favorite one, which is the Office 365 integration in policy management. Then I will talk a little bit about confidential records, and as a last, third-party management in vendor management. To start with the first one, as I said, with my favorite one, it is now possible to integrate Office 365 into policy management. What does that mean? So you can decide, so you have maybe on your OneDrive a certain folder for your policies, and you maintain there your policies, and you can decide to maintain them there, to link them to ServiceNow. So every policy in ServiceNow can be linked to a certain document, or you create out of ServiceNow a new document with this folder structure, and you can maintain it directly in Word. So you can use all the functionalities of Word, such as audit tracking, such as commenting as well, and maintain it in Word, or you decide to do it in ServiceNow. And also there, if you change something there, it's synchronized towards your file in OneDrive. So this gives you the whole capability of Office 365 and ServiceNow. Additionally to that, you have a policy publish checklist. So to make clear, to make sure that the documents are clear, so that no comments are in, that everything is done. You have like a nice checklist in ServiceNow to ensure that before publishing the policy, your document is clean. As well as a document history, whatever you change in Word or as well as in ServiceNow is documented, so you see who changed what, so that you keep track of that as well. As a second feature, I want to speak about confidential records. Already in the last release, it was possible to enable that at certain records, but now ServiceNow enabled that in all the GRC modules. So you can now mark certain sensible records as confidential. What does that mean? Only allowed users, so it's a group of users you define per record, are allowed to see that record. So maybe you have like a confidential issue, and you really want to make sure that nobody else is seeing that, or just like certain people in your organization, and then you can mark it as a confidential, and you can ensure that. As a last feature I want to talk, which is also a pretty amazing feature, is I want to talk about third-party management in vendor management and vendor risk management. What does that mean? You can now add further level of your downstream supply chain to the system. So you can define the dependencies of your vendors to their third parties. For sure, that gives you an overview over the whole supply chain, as well as you can maybe already spot certain potential disruptions because of third parties of your vendors. Additional to that, which is important in the vendor risk management, you can also for sure calculate the concentration risk of your vendors based on their third parties. So this gives really a nice overview over a supply chain, and I think this really adds values. Yeah, thanks. That was it from GRC and IAM, and I guess now we are through all the topics, and the next topic will be the Q&A session.
Thanks, Maximilian. Yes, we'll circle back because we did skip over poll question number 1. So before we let the audience ask any questions they might have, we have one more for you. And that's how long does it take your organization to upgrade to a new ServiceNow release? So Maybe we'll just leave this up for a few seconds and then display the answers. 1 month, not terrible. Okay. I'm glad there's not a whole lot on the 6 months plus. That's a good sign. All right, great. Thank you guys again for answering those questions. It's great insight for us. And now we'd like to open it up. I think the Q&A has been coming in live throughout the entire event, but if you have any others, I want to open it up now. And if you have one you'd like to address to one of the speakers, I think we've got one here. It's actually 2 weeks for new release. That's really good. Okay, and then no open questions right now. Everything's already been answered. So if nobody has any additional questions, we'll close it out and we'll send you a recording. And again, we really appreciate you guys joining today and telling us what format this works best for you in. So yeah, I don't see any new ones. I think we'll sign off. Thanks, huge thanks to all of our presenters. You guys were amazing today. Oh, okay, hold on. We do have one question. Where can we find documentation for employee workflows? Another guest says, I'd love to catch up with Dylan about CMDB. Could I catch him offline? Well, I know where you can find him, so we'll just make sure somebody reaches out to you. Pete Montero.
Yes, you can reach out to me offline.
We have another guest who said HR service delivery, but if you could specify your question, we'll make sure we get it answered. Maybe we could just ensure that our HRSD competence lead is kind of taking note that Sachin has
I think
a question.
Like question. I think that the first part of the way, can we find documentation for employee workflows for the HRSD?
Oh, I see. Okay, I got it. I think that's a good follow-up item, Manos, if you can take that offline.
It's not Manos' topic.
I'll take care of it. I wrote it down. Thanks, Manos. Thanks, Maria.
Oh, okay. Thanks, guys. Okay, I think we're going to close it out. Thank you, everyone. Great job, presenters, and thanks for everybody who joined today. We'll see you next time.